Our second panelist is Dr. Ramanujan Kashi. He's a senior research scientist with Avaya India Private Limited. He has a very rich background of technology research in this domain, starting with early work at AT&T Bell Labs at Murray Hill as a member of the technical staff, and then with the Lucent Bell Labs in 1996, and subsequently with Avaya Labs Research in 2000. He's been working here with Avaya and helped set up this research group in multimedia at the company's wholly owned subsidiary since 2004. His interests and his team work in the area of document image processing, SMS and digital ink user authentication, and more interestingly on collaboration. And much of Dr. Kashi's work and interest lies in people-centric communication, which is at the level of the enterprise. So here was a presentation you just saw at the consumer level, and now another one at the level of the enterprise. Dr. Kashi.
Thank you. Okay, it looks like Rajesh stole away all the introduction, so I don't have to spend too much time on the introduction. So my topic is essentially, it's titled as people-centric communications, right? And what I'll try to do today is try to articulate, why is, obviously the basis is the semiconductor industry is growing, so we've got some fantastic computing device, supercharged cell phones, tablet devices, etc. And the idea is, the question that is posed is, are we still the center of any communication topic? It always appears that we are always at the periphery, and it's the media, it's the devices, everything else sort of takes precedence. And we're trying to articulate a system where we have a people-centric communications where there is, user experience, that people are in sessions, they're in control, and how is it more usable? My background is more on enterprise communications, but I think, I'll try to relate it as much as possible from a local innovation perspective, and also from, how these can be sort of transformed and potentially will help in local markets too. So let me see if I can move this here. Okay, so the market trends, I won't go too much. It's pretty obvious. We've heard this, over and over again. The significant, person-to-person communications, person-to-machine, emails, YouTube, Facebook. So this is an example of person-to-machine. There's a lot of machine-to-machine transactions that's also happening, which is, you have onboard computers in cars, you have, people having, automatic sensors in terms of reporting back your health status back to the hospital, etc. And then, based on all the market trends, right? So you have, it's like a fertile playing ground. There's a lot of opportunities to innovate here. And some of the market trends, from an innovation perspective in communications is there's blurring between consumer and work environments. We went over desktop, should people have a phone? Is, mobile phones, tablets, every day we have some, fancy new device opened up there. Then obviously because of these new devices, there's varied systems out there at the consumer, at the enterprise. Interoperability is the key. So, how can we sort of get a level playing ground? Can we make sure that we can get a neutral playing ground where we can, leverage all the services that different devices and infrastructure provides? Then there's obviously, I wouldn't want to go too much into it, but one of the things that's sort of changing the system out here is a protocol called SIP, that's the Session Initiation Protocol, which sort of neutralizes the playing ground and gives a lot of opportunities for people to build applications on. And finally, there's always an emphasis on saving power, greening the environment, low carbon footprint, which really means, trying to have collaboration techniques, reducing travel, virtualization, trying to put, I've even heard of people saying, I would want to virtualize my cell phone. So that means I can take my cell phone out and I'll be able to provide a number of virtual environments on my cell phone to give the Nokia feel and look, the Android look and feel. So people have sort of taken even virtualization even to cell phones. So I'm going to sort of skip this slide here. And so the idea is there's a lot of promise. Sometimes we've seen it's too hard to use, too hard to manage, and how do I get from there? And I'm trying to, I'm going to start off, building up a story as to, why people-centric communication would help, not only for enterprise, not only for, obviously, most of our target customers are, US, UK, etc. But we've sort of taken some of these learnings. We've built certain solutions that's catered to the Indian market. And we have noticed that we're getting a lot of resonance of these particular solutions to markets elsewhere too, and I'll walk over a couple of them. So the idea here is, as I mentioned earlier, you have sort of the people have been pushed to the periphery. There's media in the center, there's devices. It's a little confusing, and the vision is how do we make it so that we have a session-based communication. Everybody identifies the other person, so they're not so concerned about should I pick up the phone and call this person. I want to reach this. The idea is I want to reach this person, and once I decide who I want to reach to, then it's I can reach them by potentially IM, by voice, by video, by multiple modalities. That should sort of come next. And then once when when I'm in conversation with this particular person or a device, then how do I sort of bring in the relevant context and the relevant contextual documents that need to be shared to have a rich collaboration. So the idea here is, essentially I'm going to go over 3 points here. One is, Rajesh referred to this also earlier, was, getting a user experience. So, with the advent of all the tablets, the touch computing, we have sort of taken this, as an art form to be able to give, multiple touch sensors, capacitive sensors. And here's an example where, we're taking this, this touch modality into more projection-based devices. So the idea is how can I, if people have played with the iPhone, people have played with the iPad, etc. But how can I take this same technology? How can I go back and say, let's take a rural classroom and then be able to sort of get a learning experience by trying to use the same, in some ways related technology by taking camera captures, IR sensors, and being, getting this experience back to a classroom, right? And how do we build compelling classrooms? While we were discussing this, we realized that in India, for instance, if we want to, design a collaboration strategy, right? The first thing that you can't take for granted, that you take for granted in Western environments, is the bandwidth. So people say, so when I was, showing this work to some customers in Germany, they said that they had, 25 Mbps of data speeds there, right? And I said, is it upload or download? They said 25 download, 15 upload. So, and bandwidth is of absolutely no concern, right? But then if you want to be, designing such, tutorials in rural India, you probably, can get about, at max, let's say with 125, 128 kbps. So how can you create a rich collaboration with 128 kbps? So we've been looking at various mechanisms to be able to, provide a real rich collaboration even in such bandwidths. So one of the example what I'm showing here is called immersive collaboration. So what we have done here is, instead of being able to push real-time video, which is really, really bandwidth intensive, all we do is, people love games. So, you have phenomenal, cell phones doing 3D graphics these days. So leverage those and be able to not push video, instead just push the vector graphics out there, and then be able to create this compelling user experience where all is done through, I don't know if people have heard about Second Life. That was a popular, tool. It's not so popular right now, but we've sort of taken some concepts from there, exclusive for communication and collaboration, and then be able to get the audio through their regular cell phones, right? So you can get their, because we don't want to do IP over audio, which you still need 64 kbps. So we figured, let's just send the data bandwidth for, maneuvering the graphic positions, the scalable vector graphics, and be able to just push the audio through our regular, GSM mechanisms. And we've shown this to work. It's quite compelling. People are excited about, trying to get an immersive kind of an environment. with very low bandwidths. And at the same time, if people have good bandwidths, we have actually shown this to a number of enterprise customers where they say, you know what, this can save us, traditional 2D web conferencing is hundreds of people get into the conference. You see a list of people, one person talks, so you don't have a feeling of, who's where in that conference room. You don't know whether people are interested there. So here's an example where I can profile people, I can take them to specific rooms, we can have an audio conversation, we can provide what is called as spatial audio. So if two people are close by, you can hear them, hear them clearly. As they move away, the sound intensity decreases. So again, another classic example. At one end, we have high-end customers, but this was sort of designed for low bandwidth usage. Another story here, more on, I'm trying to sort of lead into a story where we have these video kiosks that we've again sort of, played around quite a bit. We've spoken to a lot of, governmental organizations in India to be able to provide, rural health kiosks. So maybe I'll skip this particular experience and directly go into, just in the interest of time. So the idea here is to have a rich so the idea here is we want to be able to provide a compelling rural health kiosk or education kiosk and have somebody to be able to get a full-blown collaboration between an expert sitting in an urban area where they have ample bandwidth. You can do audio, video, application sharing. You can push videos over to the people on the other side. So it's as easy because you don't have the people at the rural side or the people at the customer side do not have to download any application on their endpoint, mobile devices. So typically, I think people are sort of convinced that the internet penetration is very low. The most internet you can get on is on your cell phones. So it's sort of taken for granted that you're going to, computers in rural areas is still going to be, it's probably not going to be very popular. It's going to be the cell phones. It's going to be bigger screen phones. It's going to be, inexpensive tablets that's going to rule the world. It'll have a 3G SIM card, 4G, 5G card, whatever it is, and that's how you're going to be getting your content over. So the idea here is have absolutely no application that's on your kiosk machine, and you go in and you click. So you're going to be, you're sort of leveraging on commercially available technologies like Flash, etc. Take this over to the, take it over to the enterprise. And as I mentioned earlier, that we have something called the session initiation protocol. Convert that to real-time audio and video, and get a full-blown collaboration from a customer to an agent where there's nothing downloaded, absolutely minimal bandwidth required on the customer side, but still be able to provide a compelling interaction. And the whole point here is at every instant example that I'm showing you, it's trying to bring people at the center of the communication. So what I'll do is I'll basically end this with so the idea here is, again, we've had this one transformation from TDM telephony to IP telephony. It obviously gave us a lot of promise, and now we are at the cusp of saying we're going to move from IP to SIP-based communication, where you have a session and you're going to be creating a session and you're going to be adding media, devices, etc. to the session. So this is what we've sort of been seeing, in the last couple of years, and this is going to, significantly accelerate for the foreseeable future. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Kashi, for telling us about this interesting development on how to improve internet penetration through use of cell phones, as well as this last bit on the session